Steel boots clacked against steel as Captain Carla Trey stood on the bridge. Her executive officer was beside her, a man she had known for 6 hours, and she hated how he flinched every time the sound came closer. But Bialk had been forced on her, unfortunately, so she couldn't get rid of him. She eyed Clara, the woman who she actually wanted as her XO, and suppressed a sigh. At least she knew most of her command staff, unlike her crew. She'd had 2 hours to scrape together who she could, and 4 more would arrive in a few hours, but the command deck looked empty regardless. If she'd been closer when the vacancy reached her, or if her duties hadn't postponed submitting her application, she might have had more time. As it was, she'd spend 3 days in a shitty transport to get here, only to find they'd be leaving in 7 hours and her supposed XO had done only the bare minimum to prepare. She stretched, looking around. It was, admittedly, one hell of a career move to go from commanding a hunter of 20 to a destroyer of 300. Not to mention working for a Sith, but she knew that could go either way. The doors opened, but it wasn't the Sith she saw. A Twi'lek came first, followed by a rather normal-looking man quietly talking with her. Bialk stiffened, everyone else on deck trying their hardest to look busy. She snapped off a salute her old drill instructor would have been proud of as the Sith stopped before her, holding out his hand for her to shake as he nodded to her XO. Carla shook it, looking him over and trying to reconcile the stories she'd heard over the last few days and the man before her. His eyes didn't pierce her very soul, nor did he drip with dread incarnate. The only way she knew this was a Sith at all was the lightsaber hanging off his belt. "Captain Carla. Pleased to meet you, sir." The man smiled, the Twi'lek looking past her XO. "Morgan. The pleasure is mine, Captain. This is Veta, who has no manners and thus got distracted by shiny chairs." Veta squawked, rounding on him. "It's a very nice chair and you know it. Would look great in our room. We are not taking the captain's chair." Carla hid behind her officer face as the man turned away from the Twi'lek, provoking an insulted hiss. "Excuse her, she wasn't raised. Are you clear on your duties?" She nodded, deciding to ignore the byplay. "Sir. I am to captain the modified Terminus-class destroyer known as the Aurora and its complement of Navy personnel, command her should we engage in naval combat and transport you and your men to wherever needed." Morgan smiled again. "Very good, Captain. 2 last-minute passengers have been added, Alyssa Gray and Inara Baker. They are both Sith, and will accompany us to Nar Shaddaa." She nodded calmly, no hint of her alarm showing. The Sith tilted his head. "Not to worry, Captain. They are under my command, and I expect you to report to me should you have any issues with them." Veta broke in, bouncing on her heel. "I don't think they'll be leaving their cabin until we dock or get attacked, but what do I know?" "Nothing at all, but your sparkling personality keeps me entertained." He shot back lazily, turning back to her. "I have other business, but is there anything you wish to discuss with me before I leave?" "I'd like this incompetent, Daddy ensured my promotion commander off my deck and to promote Clara in his stead. Otherwise nothing, sir. Just some light career suicide for me and my friend, who I had dig into his past 2 hours after meeting him." She shook her head. The Sith looked at her, his tone calm, but she finally understood the stories. It was the eyes, the calm part of her brain decided. How they seemed to look past her flesh. "If there is anything at all, I would like you to tell me, Captain. Honesty is something I value in my people, especially those that will advise me on matters I have no experience with." Carla flinched as the Twi'lek seemed to appear beside her, casually leaning on her shoulder to whisper in her ear. "Pinky promised that, whatever it is, he won't take offense." "I'd like to fire Bialk," she blurted. Sir. I believe Lieutenant Clara would be a significantly better fit as my second-in-command than Commander Bialk, sir." Veta sniggered, looking at the man in question. "Drama already. I do so love the Navy." "Well, not really, but I love that they do drama, apparently." Bialk had gone white, looking at her with wide eyes. "I'd apologize, but I think you're a disgrace to the uniform." Still, I didn't mean to just blurt it out like that. Morgan turned to the man, looking him over. And why would your commanding officer doubt your competence, Commander? Bielk cleared his throat, bowing as his high society manners kicked into gear. Carla rolled her eyes, heaving an internal sigh of relief when no one witnessed her breach of protocol. I wish I knew, my lord. I passed all my academy classes, possess a high degree of skill in diplomacy and have 4 years of officer experience. I truly cannot see a reason for her dislike of me, my lord, as I have just met her. Morgan nodded, smiling at the man. Did you know, Commander, that I possess the ability to tell when people are lying to me? Bielk's face formed into polite confusion, his hand twitching before he stilled it. She had to suppress a grin, a small ray of hope starting to bloom in her chest. And that I have a strong dislike for people lying to me? It's a personal thing. Carla startled slightly as she lost track of the Twi'lek, finding her standing casually behind the commander. She narrowed her eyes as the woman silently tapped the knife on her belt, looking at the Sith. She's going to slit his throat. She realized, wondering what the hell she had gotten herself into. Bielk spoke, his voice remarkably even. Hers wouldn't be, in his situation. I'm afraid I don't know what you mean, my lord. I've only just met the captain. That's true. Morgan admitted easily. And so you lied that you had no idea why the captain dislikes you so. Does anyone wish to shed some light on the matter? The Sith waved his hand, turning to the deck at large. I know no one is actually working. Anyone? Carla desperately wished it wasn't Clara climbing onto the deck, but when the footsteps finally entered her field of vision she saw her friend standing prim and proper at attention. Sir. Commander Bielk has questioned her command, remarked several times how a woman of her species is fit only for a slave brothel and has attempted to replace her as captain by appealing to his father, sir. I also wish to inform you that it is widely believed the commander's father pulled strings so that the commander would not have to redo several of his classes, but nothing was ever proven. I believe that is where her dislike comes from, sir. Morgan looked briefly surprised, Carla managing to resist snorting. A human Sith wouldn't be confronted with racism all that often, she imagined. With a yes or no answer, have you remarked that your commanding officer is only fit for a slave brothel? Bielk looked like he couldn't decide between terror and anger, managing a strange-looking middle ground. Yes. With a yes or no answer, have you attempted to use personal connections to replace your commanding officer as captain? Bielk grit his teeth, forcing out the words. Yes, but... Get off my ship, Commander. Captain, replace your second-in-command as you see fit. Believe me when I say I'm not here to micromanage you, nor do I have the expertise to do so if I wanted to. Excuse me, I really do have other business to attend to. Morgan nodded to her, turned and left. Bielk took a step forward, his lips forming words of protest. Veta surged, the butt of her knife coming to his temple. Bielk collapsed in a heap, Jillins and 2 of his men stepping onto the bridge moments later. They saluted as Morgan passed, the Sith nodding to them. She'd been reading up on the soldiers on her ship, although she didn't know the 2 accompanying the corporal by name. You called, Ma'am? Carla watched Morgan walk away, his stride unhurried. She turned as the corporal spoke, wondering when the Twi'lek had done anything of the sort. Dump this waste of space off the ship. Don't worry about bruising him, and if he ever attempts to intervene with our people again, new to the job or not, kill him. The corporal saluted, his 2 men stepping forward and dragging the unconscious commander away. Carla looked at the Twi'lek, once again looking like a cheerful young woman someone had given far too many weapons. Now that that's dealt with, and in the effort to avoid listening to Quinn report on whatever he found so important as to bother Morgan with, let's get to know each other, you and me. Carla shot a panicked look at Clara, the woman smiling wildly at the Twi'lek as she intercepted her. No, please, not another one, I'm begging you. Clara bounded forwards, her decorum forgotten as she introduced herself cheerfully. Carla watched, helpless, as the innocent-looking pair gravitated to the captain's chair. Clara, no wait, stop, that woman just ordered a Navy commander shot and the soldiers just went with it, what the fuck please. Her internal pleading was kept under a professional mask as she made her rounds to double-check supplies and their destination, half her mind panicking while the other was drafting the letter that would promote her friend to the new XO. She calmed as she worked, the pair still chatting like old friends, and finally shook her head, dismissing a commander like an errant dog and giving me leave to staff my command as I see fit, only to turn around and find he'd given the same liberty to a possibly insane Twi'lek. What have I gotten myself into? Morgan walked quietly through the ship, saluting crewmen stopping left and right until he passed. He ignored them, returning polite nods to those he made accidental eye contact with. She's been getting more protective, he mused, passing through a bulkhead door 2 feet thick. That commander, whatever his name was, wouldn't have been able to scratch me even if he'd been stupid enough to attack. He opened the door to Quinn's office, finding the man bent over a table. He didn't look up, so Morgan waited politely. He decided to use the time to perfect his stealth, not so much drawing on the force as settling it around himself. He noted some progress, but Teacher still saw through it with ease. Progress is being made. Maybe I'll even be able to turn invisible someday. Morgan smiled to himself as he imagined sneaking up on Veta, then smiled wider as he imagined the sheer outrage that would follow. Quinn looked up and nearly shot out of his chair, saluting unnecessarily. Stop that. You're an army captain, not some fresh recruit. I get enough saluting from the crewmen. My lord. Apologies, I didn't hear you come in. He waved his hand, taking a seat and bemoaning his lack of armor. He'd gotten used to wearing it, and now he had to wait until Nar Shaddaa to get a new set. You had something you wished to update me on. Ah, yes. Quinn cleared his throat, regaining his footing. Over the last 4 days I've been able to recruit those I believe to be the good fit, and adding that to the 3 recruits Veta picked up, we're sitting at 20 soldiers. Lieutenant Helen has settled in well, but we have encountered a problem. Morgan sighed. It's the money, isn't it? It's always money. Precisely. We have been reassigned to your entourage, and this does come with several benefits. Reassigning skilled, willing soldiers is significantly easier with the Sith's backing, and I will not have to maneuver around the Imperial chain of command when we arrive at Nar Shaddaa. Quinn finally sat down, handing over a datapad. As you can see, there is a downside. The Empire expects Sith to fund their own entourages, likely in an effort to stop them from dividing the military into their own private armies. He looked it over, flinched at the sum. Barras did tell us this. He did. Quinnen allowed. I found it prudent to get an accurate account of our finances. As it stands, even with the generous donation made by Veta, we will be able to get to Nar Shaddaa and no further. Fuel alone will drain the coffers, not to mention salaries, combat pay and repairs to the ship. Veta's working on it. The captain nodded, his face carefully polite. You don't approve. Speak freely, Quinn. Using a military vessel to smuggle does not sit right with me, sir. It's dangerous to transport unknown goods, not to mention unethical. Unethical? Morgan repeated slowly. Firstly, Captain, Veta inspects all goods that we transport. I'm the last person that wants explosives or God forbid slaves in my hull. Secondly, said hull is as good as empty. Her connections are the only reason we won't be stuck on Balmorra, unable to pay for the fuel needed to leave. He put a hand to his chin. Unethical. I believe the only war crime I have yet to commit is rape and the slaughter of children, and that is if you don't count stupid 18-year-olds picking up a rifle as a child. Speaking of war crimes, the Empire is wont to enslave, burn and conquer any planet it sees fit, never mind the ethics. The Imperial military has conducted some of the single most gruesome, unnecessarily barbaric campaigns imaginable. I will allow the vast majority to have been committed under orders of the Sith, yet they were committed all the same. Don't tell me avoiding tax is unethical when we just participated in a battle that killed thousands of people fighting for their freedom. Morgan sighed, holding up his hand. Quinn's face had gone blank, his hands carefully relaxed. Apologies. I do not blame you for the whole of the Empire's actions, nor do I believe you to be the man to commit them. Quinn waited for a second, looking, before deflating. I know. It's an objection I had to raise, seeing as smuggling is illegal under Imperial law. The true downside is that we can't submit its gains as income. Donations have to be taxed, but any income made by a Sith is exempt. I don't know what to tell you. Start a business, sell stuff? The captain shrugged. Passive income would be best, but I admit to not being a trained economist. I'm afraid I don't have an answer, my lord, Morgan hummed, setting the matter aside. I met Captain Carla. She seems young, for someone of her rank. Quinn shrugged again, handing over a different datapad. Top 3% of her year, shunted off soon after graduation due to her race. She's seen actual combat, quite a lot of it, in fact, and has an exemplary record. The best of those available, not to mention someone who will rise far with your protection, my lord. Combat. Pirates and the like. They send her on suppression missions, mostly as a lone vessel. She's flourished, in my opinion. Most of her crew went with her when she accepted this assignment. I see. I fired her XO, by the way. Shouldn't be your problem, but heads up. So Corporal Gillens has informed me. Quinn nodded. I've impressed upon them to not shoot a commander of the Imperial Navy, and I will assume Veta meant that figuratively. She lightly did not. I'll talk to her. Morgan stood, having no intention of doing so. He found it rather adorable when she got protective, actually, although he could imagine others found it significantly less so. Keep me up to date, Captain. We'll be departing in a few hours. The captain nodded, looking back down at his desk as Morgan left again. That took significantly less time than I thought it would. He contemplated, walking aimlessly. Appearing busy when he wasn't was an old skill, one acquired long before lightsabers and twilight became a staple in his life, but these days he hadn't much need to employ it. His feet brought him to his, room. He hadn't explored much of it yet, and taking one look at his small pile of stuff made him decide to change that. Packing his things away didn't take long, he traveled light, and then he was back to being bored again. Teacher would likely scold him and set him to training, but it was all he'd been doing since arriving at Balmorra. A soulless drama had him somehow more bored than doing nothing, but by then his stomach reminded him he'd skipped lunch. Again. He snorted. From overeating to not caring about hunger to the point of starvation. Upgrades people, upgrades. Still, might as well. Inspecting the kitchen he found an actual kitchen, a 4-pit stove standing next to a tall fridge. Looking inside revealed rows of neatly arranged vegetables, meats and cheeses, most of which he didn't recognize. Morgan didn't so much decide to make dinner, but eating some cheese led to inspecting the steak. That led to baking it, and who eats steak without potatoes anyway? Some strange-looking plant tasted just like cauliflower, so he set some water to boiling. He hummed as he chopped onions, blue but otherwise tasting fine, and used his telekinesis to hunt for something to drink. He found wine, but a small taste revealed his palate to be as unrefined as ever. Shrugging and pouring himself a glass, his hands still busy chopping onions, he resumed humming. He heard the door open, soft footsteps padding inside. Turning, he saw a bemused Veta standing in the living room, eyebrow raised. "What you doing?" "Making dinner?" he offered with a shrug, setting down the knife to flip the steak. "I was bored and someone went through the trouble to stock the fridge. Would be rude not to, at that point." She hummed in agreement, skipping over and kissing him on the cheek. "Anything I can do?" "Set the table. You'll have to find the plates yourself, if we even have any." Veta nodded resolutely, throwing open cabinets until she found what she was looking for. Morgan turned back to the potatoes to find them mostly done, cutting the steak in half. So they could share, of course. Certainly not because he'd forgotten how long ago he put it on and needed to check how rare it was. A few minutes later found Veta kicking her feet on the counter, watching him work. I didn't know you could cook. I can't, for the record. Frozen dinners all the way. Not a skill the Sith taught me, that's for sure. He floated over the cheese when she made grabby hands for it, shrugging. Used to be a hobby. Feels like a lifetime ago, honestly. She hummed, breaking the cheese and throwing him a piece. He bent over backward, keeping the pan level as he caught it with his teeth. He smiled smugly. Force agility, suck it. Veta scoffed, flicking a piece high and catching it. What did Quinn want? Oh, that. So, basically, we're broke. We knew that already. She accused grandly. Morgan chuckled. So we did. Unfortunately, relying on your donations won't cut it. Worse than being suspicious, it's taxed. Any business or property I own isn't, but how do you even buy a business? She made a face, throwing the cheese back toward the fridge and missing. Taxation. Truly, the evil of the Empire knows no limits. This is why I became an outlaw in the first place. He caught the cheese with the force and put it back in the fridge, throwing a spoon at her. Don't throw food, it's unbecoming. Veta dodged, sticking her tongue out. How long is this going to take, anyway? Another 20? The steak needs to rest. She hopped to the ground. I'm going to take a shower, then. She lingered near the door, finally turning back. You can't actually tell when people lie, right? Morgan waved, turning his focus on the cauliflower. Not as such. I can feel what they feel when they lie to me, and that man's anxiety spiked whenever he did. Someone with excellent control over their emotions would be able to lie to me easily enough. She nodded, throwing her clothes to the floor before disappearing into the bathroom. He picked up a piece of vegetable, judged it about done and went to check the table. It was set well enough, although he straightened the cutlery and added the wine bottle. Placing some candles completed the table, having found someone hunting for a cheese grater. Veta returned to find the room darkened, shadows cast in the soft orange of fire. Romantic. He tilted his head, looking it over. I guess? Honestly wouldn't know. It's a miracle there are candles in the first place, by the way. She accepted a glass of wine, taking a seat as Morgan did the same. Her feet immediately began fighting for space, making him scowl and pin them in place. Behave. The food's getting cold. She glared back but started eating, taking a sip of wine and raising her eyebrow. If I didn't know better, you're trying to get me drunk. This is strong stuff. He shrugged. Automatic poison filtering, I need at least this much to even start feeling it. Besides, I don't think there's much you do drunk that you wouldn't do sober. Fair. Steak's good, by the way. Nice and juicy. Morgan smiled, inclining his head. Good ingredients are half the job. They ate in companionable silence, finding himself with an armful of Twi'lek afterwards, curled on the couch. He floated the dishes into the kitchen to be tomorrow's problem, playing with her Leku as she flicked through channels endlessly. This was good. Nice. She said after a while. Fuck. I've never really done this stuff before. I've been wined and dined once or twice, but that was them trying to get into my pants. It's nice to just relax. He kissed her head, smiling. I had fun too. Better enjoy it while you can. I doubt we'll get much time when we get to Nar Shaddaa. Veta grumbled, hugging his arm as she finally settled on a drama. He watched with her, uncaring for the show but basking in the moment of peace. I love you, you know. Never thought that would happen. She twisted her head up, kissing him and burrowing again. I love you too, you surprisingly big softy. Now shush, it's just getting good. He smiled, keeping quiet as he traced circles on her shoulder. I'll make time. He promised silently. Nar Shaddaa, Veta saw, hadn't changed much. Granted, she was still in orbit and they hadn't even made it to landing yet. Quinn was standing a half step behind Morgan, both looking stoic and professional as they talked with some customs agent. There had been a problem, apparently, and the dock assigned to them had been taken by some hut. Said hut had promptly refused to vacate the spot, pulling on family connections to make life difficult for everyone and claiming she owned it in the first place. The woman was some big important export magnate. She hadn't listened too closely. But a hut wanted something, and so they got it. Nothing had changed. Please bring her into this call, Officer Grethik. I will talk with her. The customs agent nodded tensely, and Veta imagined he had to be hitting every panic button he had. She could sympathize. The woman was quick to join the call, at the very least, but looked not the slightest bit intimidated. Ah, the little Sith that believes the universe bows when he demands it. Nar Shaddaa belongs to the huts, not the Empire. We loaned you our docks, we haven't sold them. Morgan nodded, surprising the woman. Correct, in a sense. This dock, however, is the only one available for my ship at this moment in time. If you would be so kind as to lend it to me for a number of weeks, I can complete my business and we'll be on our way. A wheezing laugh came over the speaker, the woman smiling broadly. A begging Sith, how interesting. We can arrange something. Come, speak with me in my penthouse. The image cut off, the whole deck silent as the grave. Well. Veta broke in cheerily. That went about as well as could be expected. So, we're off to kill her? Captain Carla choked silently as Morgan sighed, turning to her. Perhaps. Quinn, hold down the ship as I go talk to her. Best not to start a war with the cartels, no matter how annoying to deal with. Someone fetch me Alyssa and Inara. The two linked up at his smaller Fury-class ship, both looking like they'd just crawled out of bed. Inara returned her broad grin, miming something she couldn't quite decipher. It earned her a harsh look from Alyssa, so she didn't imagine it was polite. We will be dealing with a hut, and since I do not wish to plunge the Empire into a war with the cartels quite yet, there will be no violence unless I order it, understood? Both women bowed, murmuring assurances before they finally got moving again. Landing an interceptor was significantly easier than a destroyer, the short trip lasting minutes before they were walking on Nar Shaddaa proper. The penthouse was some ways away, but securing transport was easy enough. The ride was mostly quiet, the lovebirds horrible at small talk and Morgan staring broodily out the window. Stop sulking. She chided. At the absolute worst we'll kill her and let the chips fall as they will. The ship will be fine in orbit, if not capable of serving as our base of operations. He looked at her, eyes tired. It's not that. Annoying, sure, but it's not that. This is an old place, and older things stalk its darker corners. I'd like to avoid them like the plague, but I don't think they'll let me. Cryptic. She murmured approvingly. You'll be scaring young Sith in damp tombs within the year, mark my words. He smiled faintly, turning back to the window as towering skyscrapers raced past. It's also creepy as hell when you spout arcane knowledge like that, 'cause so far they've all turned out to be true. The penthouse was a grand thing, glittering windows and spouting fountains framing their landing site. The guards looked well armed and competent, but she saw rather less of them than she had imagined. Their party made it inside without trouble, the hut seat dominating the grand, and only, room in the space. Said hut waved her arm as they approached, the music falling still. Ah, the Sith. Welcome, welcome. I am VC the Magnificent. Please, take a seat as I finish with some business. Veta wanted to hiss at the insult, but Morgan nodded politely before she could jump at the thing and strangle it. He put a hand on her shoulder, leaning close. We aren't pressed for time, and I'd like her feeling confident instead of cornered. Go see what information you can gather while I stand over there with these two and terrify the guests. She nodded, holding her anger tight as she looked over the room. As expected from a hut, it was filled with adoring fans, most too terrified to leave, bounty hunters, mercenaries and slavers. Her anger spiked as she caught the dancers, looking miserable but hiding it well. They looked fed, at the very least, but she knew something about the weight of their collars. She ignored the slavers entirely and walked over to some bounty hunters playing Pazak, drinking like it was going out of style. They didn't much like her, but she had credits and a carefully cultivated air of ignorance about the game. Over the next 10 minutes she lost about as much as she won, but more importantly the hunters started to relax again. She bought a few rounds, earning her appreciative grunts, and they finally started doing the thing she was here for. Complaining. I swear, it's factory duty 1 week after another. Boss doesn't know what the hell to do with us, I'll tell you. His neighbor laughed, taking a long drag from some pipe on his shoulder. We're getting paid to sit here and look rough while we drink and play, won't hear me complaining. Sides, with the way things are going we'll get another bonus soon enough, then we can go looking for some real work. Filing that away and slinking off, the group laughing at her spectacular loss, she joined another trio of mercenaries this time, intently watching 2 droids in a ring and cursing as one dropped. You boys have room for little old me? I've credits. One of them, who looked to be an actual Mandalorian, snorted. I don't drink on the job, so unlike those idiots I saw you come in with the Sith. What do you want? She seated herself, throwing a handful of credits on the small pot in the middle. Everything on black, round 3 elimination. Just wanted to see who managed to pique the interest of my boss, then was stupid enough to tell him to sit and wait like a dog. The Mandalorian huffed, writing down her bet while she nodded to the 2 others. They didn't seem in the mood for talking. Did seem a little laid back for one. Fought a Sith once, or saw one butcher half my company, anyway. Your boss gonna start something? Don't reckon too many will stand and fight when that trio starts breaking spines. I'm Veta, and not if she keeps the insults to a minimum. He's got purpose here that's more important than dealing with her. Dorka. Words to make any wise man shiver. He fell silent as the droid's fight intensified, turning back when a pretty woman appeared to promote a new drug. VC isn't stupid, won't hear me say that, but she might be having some trouble. Suppose that's what she gambled on your boss for. Employing a Sith, or appearing to have one working for her, would solve many of them. She hummed, keeping an eye on the game as the 3rd round started. That why there's few guards but too many mercs. Can't say I have an opinion about that. Dorka shrugged noncommittally. But anyone with eyes could see the mercs and hunters are bored. The black droid knocked the red one out of the ring, making grand gestures of victory. Dorka snorted and shoved the pile of money her way, the 2 silent mercs scowling. Nice meeting you, Dorka. The Mandalorian waved, and she joined Morgan where he was quietly talking with his 2 bodyguards. And why did Soft Voice send you, exactly? Inara shuffled awkwardly, Alyssa frowning. I believe his exact words were to guard you, my lord. I could not begin to guess at his true motive, should that not be it. She broke in, the other woman taking a step back to give them space. Found out why the Hutt's being a cunt. To summarize 4 brilliant insights, 1 skillful interrogation and several spectacular bets, she's having trouble. Lost too many of her guards and is compensating with bounty hunters and mercs, but they're getting bored with securing her factories. Having you work for her would scare away whoever is muscling in, but I have a plan. Morgan rolled his eyes, which was uncalled for, but listened. So, basically, I steal it first. That way I can be the queen of the underworld and make lots of money. She eyed the dancers. Maybe free some slaves while I'm at it. Brilliant. He said dryly. It might possibly be too well thought out, actually. Best not to make it too complicated. You may approach, Sith. VC called loudly, what conversation still going on in the room falling silent. VC the Magnificent will hear your plea. Play along please. She whispered. I'd really like to steal a syndicate. Think of the money. So much money. Morgan nodded, stepping forward while she stepped back. If violence were to erupt she'd be in a better position in the back, not that it would. Dorka was right when he'd said mercs don't fight Sith. No matter the money, can't spend it when you're dead. Not a plea, but yes. We need to have a conversation. Morgan said. The Empire is renting several large hangars in this port, one of which was assigned to my ship some days ago. It is currently occupied by one of your vessels, and I would like it empty. VC laughed, and it just occurred to her she was speaking basic. She didn't know if she was broke or less arrogant than most huts, although from this experience it looked like the former. That hangar belongs to me and I will do with it as I please, no matter the meddling of the Empire. I can, however, make an exception. Veta frowned, shooting Inara a warning look when she stepped forwards. She ignored how she had wanted to do the same, and how Alyssa's hand was itching to her lightsaber. No wonder she's losing control of her people if she's this bad at reading a situation. Morgan nodded sympathetically, taking a small step forwards. Business is all about exchanging services. What did you have in mind? Very good. VC praised. Using the brain is a rare thing for your kind. There is a warehouse in the Corellian sector, once belonging to the great VC, that was unjustly taken from me. Retake it in my name, and the hangar is yours for as long as your business lasts. Veta wanted to shoot her, no matter that she just stopped the lovebirds from doing the same, but Morgan agreed before she could. Very well. I will need the hangar now, though. VC laughed, waved her hand agreeably, and music started to play again. Morgan walked their way, not saying anything until they were in the car again and he'd informed Captain Carla the ship could be landed. That could have gone worse. Inara hissed. She insults you, takes what is yours, and it could have gone worse? She thinks you are weak, to be ordered around. Veta agreed, but also didn't particularly want the reproachful look leveled at her either. And what a surprise it will be, when she finds out I am not. Her opinion of me matters less than dust, her threat smoke in the wind. Immediate, overwhelming violence is the way of normal Sith. Morgan looked at Alyssa briefly, turning back to the fuming Inara. Are we normal Sith, Inara? To be swayed by our emotions, our anger? She shook her head minutely, Alyssa putting a hand on her shoulder. Morgan nodded calmly. You two are here to guard me, learn from me. I value advice, and I always will, but it will be given in private. Do not contradict me in public, nor attempt to steer my actions directly. Veta didn't much like the strained air in the ride, not that her boss seemed to even notice it, and when they finally came back to the hangar she welcomed the relatively fresh air. Carla had landed the Aurora, not waiting for the hangar to be fully cleared, and Quinn's men were chasing out the last stragglers. I will speak with Barras. The day is yours to fill as you see fit. The two Sith bowed, Inara somewhat stiffly, before departing. Veta spoke up when they were gone, looking him over. Was that wise? He looked at her, sighing. She'll get over it. Astra sent them here to temper, so they can study under me. They will obey me, even if, especially if, they don't like it. Fanaticism is a dangerous thing, forming a disconnect between who you are and who your followers think you are. If you let it spread, let it fester, that distance will grow. One day what they think you should do, and what you wish to do, differs entirely. She hummed, giving him a kiss and shove. You are the expert, but for the record I don't like the way that Hutt talked to you. Go, you have scary Sith Lords to talk to. I'll find something to entertain myself with, don't worry. Don't burn down the moon. He chuckled half-heartedly. At least not until we're done here. Apprentice. I see you have made good use of your new ship. Morgan bowed, Darth Barras's image looming over him. It will serve me well, my lord. See that it does. On to the matter at hand. Nar Shaddaa is, I'm afraid, the armpit of the galaxy. It's a planet of frivolity and distraction, gambling, spice and gang disputes filling every corner of the place. Its black market can be useful, however, so do not discount it entirely. He stayed silent, nodding along. But you are here to eliminate my spy, Agent Delocan. Normally it would be a trifling task, but Delocan has acquired a powerful ally. When his position came under scrutiny from Nomen Karr's Padawan he figured I would kill him, and sought protection from Lord Rathari. An upstart, by all measures, but the Dark Council has granted him dominion over Sith interests on Nar Shaddaa. Will his death be required, Lord? Morgan asked. It might bring scrutiny from the Council should I succeed. Barra scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. Leave the Council to me, apprentice. Agent Delocan knows much about my organization, and so Rathari cannot have possession of him. The spy must die. If you find a way to do this without killing Rathari, feel free to do so. Of course, my lord. He didn't sound confident that would be the case, but Morgan didn't fancy fighting a Sith Lord quite yet. Haladril Setsin runs my slave operations on Nar Shaddaa, and has been a valued operative for many years. She is ready to receive you and can fill you in on Rathari's movements and interests. That is all. The image cut off, leaving him standing alone in a dark room. Slavers. Of course it's Slavers. Well, if I might be fighting a Sith Lord, it's back to teacher's lessons for me. He walked to the training rooms, finding surprisingly well-equipped facilities greeting him as he walked inside. Then again, Quinn might well have arranged for the equipment on Balmorra to be transferred here. I swear, that man doesn't sleep. Teacher floated off his belt, the holocron clicking open. I see you have managed to extract yourself from the pleasures of the flesh. Don't be snide, I was busy. Not like I stopped training. He demonstrated by cloaking himself in the Force, his perception finding himself muted. Teacher scoffed. That won't fool a clever dog, never mind a Darth. I see that you have, at the very least, managed to not alert your master. Small miracles. That is not what we will focus on today. Teacher floated closer, looking at him carefully. Morgan shuddered when he felt only the barest hint of the scan. Your shield is adequate, I suppose, and will grow in power on its own. You might just be ready to try and unravel hostile techniques before they reach you, allowing for a higher skill ceiling. Morgan frowned, remembering the overseer talking about that. Or most of her lecture, anyway. My old overseer said that trying both at the same time is near impossible. The cube wobbled. Not untrue, and it won't be a skill mastered easily. It will, however, prevent a repeat of your disastrous fight on Balmorra. Your relatively high degree of skill means you have stamina despite your lacking reserves, but against those that can tax them directly you are woefully underprepared. All right, I get it. No more slacking. It was only a few days. How does one counter Force techniques, exactly? The overseer didn't mention. Teacher floated closer, his voice dropping. I do not push you to be cruel, apprentice. You are stacked against giants, those that have decades of experience to draw on. You either become one yourself or die, no matter your own desires. Now, what is a Force technique? Morgan tilted his head, shaking his head at the warning. A structured interaction with the Force, guided by intention and will. It's no science, I can tell you that. Fair. Teacher floated back, pacing by slowly moving side to side. Study, while having revealed some of its secrets, remains slow and clumsy. There is no guidebook, and each practitioner draws their own path. We teach them to push, how to structure thought and will. What path they take to accomplish a push is their own, for we do not know how to. How can we do something yet not know how to do it? Teacher scoffed. Tell me how to sleep. You lay down, preferably in a dark room but not always, and Morgan opened his mouth, closing it again when he didn't find anything else to say. I see your point. Good. To get back to the lesson, to unravel is to feel the structure of a hostile technique. To know it, as you know your own. When you do, know it so well you can see how it is built from nothing to completion, you can break it. You can find that one point where a small application of Force will destabilize it, rendering it harmless. The cube laughed. Doing so while it is actively trying to harm you is where the difficulty comes in. Nor can you devote all your attention to it, lest your opponent cuts your head off. A small, harmless push hit his shoulder, coming with so little warning his arm jerked back before he could dodge. Lucky for you it is not difficult to train, merely taking practice. Pay attention. The next came slower, thankfully, so Morgan could lean out of the way. A slap caught him on the cheek, turning his head with its strength. "This is not avoidance training, apprentice." He grunted, sitting down and crossing his legs. The slaps kept coming, but after the initial surprise they bothered him little. Instead he focused, finding it easy enough to home in on the techniques as they came. Unraveling was another matter, until he found a rather glaring hole in one of them. Poking it dissolved the technique, but he couldn't say how he knew there was a weakness there. It just was, like studying the techniques of others, seeing what he could copy. Another came, and he realized this was almost exactly how he copied techniques in the first place. Not so much lately, true. Darth Lacris had been the last, and finding those he could fight, yet was strong enough to learn from, were far and few. The unraveling was new, but not something he had all that much trouble with. Opening Teacher's holocron had been far harder, especially near the end. I wonder, sometimes. He opened his eyes, seeing Teacher orbit his head. Wonder what? What you would have become, had Barras taught you properly. There is no substitute for a real mentor, not even the most brilliant of trapped minds. Morgan shook his head. I have no wish to see what he would have molded me as. I take it I wasn't supposed to get it down so quickly? No, you were not. Teacher hummed. But it was ignorant of me to discount your perception and the thieving it allows. Don't be offended, thief will be among the kindest things they call you. He didn't feel particularly offended. What now? The cube shrugged. I cannot produce more force attacks than what I already have. It allows me mobility, a fair amount of it, but nothing more. It was a mistake I implore you never to repeat. I am quite literally at your mercy, should you wish me harm. Good thing I don't, then. I'll call Alyssa and Inara. Calling a crewman to fetch them wasn't hard, and he filled the time with some light meditation. They arrived soon enough, Morgan feeling a surge of amusement at the sight of them. I hope my summons did not interrupt anything important? Alyssa stood with dignity, her hair a mess and her clothes less than their usual neatness. Inara shook her head, smiling broadly. None at all, my lord. It proved an interesting time constraint to our activities. Her girlfriend shot her a dangerous look, taking half a step forward before she could say anything else. What can we assist you with, my lord? My apprentice is learning to unravel hostile techniques. Teacher cut in. You will both attack him with relatively harmless but varied attacks, and when he has learned to defend against them you will spar. Alyssa, Inara, meet Teacher. Teacher, two of Anosis's new recruits. Teacher floated closer. Did I stutter? Begin. Morgan snorted, motioning for them to start as he took a seat on the floor. Two attacks came soon after, one a structured telekinesis punch while the other felt more like a wave. They came slower than Teacher's attack, yet took more power and concentration to unravel. Techniques with more power behind them will take more to unravel. The cube lectured, mirroring his own thoughts. Their structure is more solid, although the skill of the practitioner can make it more difficult to more perfect their craft. He pricked another one, stabbing a force tendril through it as it dissolved into nothing. The next caught him, knocking the air out of his lungs. He laughed, turning away three more before the fourth caught him across the leg. His reserves kept steady, each unraveling taking only a tenth of what shielding would have. Morgan smiled as bruises started forming, standing and slowly walking around the room. Alyssa and Inara exchanged wary glances, their previous levity forgotten as Morgan turned their attacks into nothing. An hour later they sat on the floor, sweat dripping from them as they recovered. Teacher was having none of it, hovering over his shoulder. 2-minute break, then we start with sparring. Training sabers only. Morgan smiled, petting the cube as another life-saving skill was added to his bag of tricks. Don't know what I would do without you. Teacher floated away, knocking his hand off. Lay dying in a ditch. Refrain from petting me like a cat. He snorted, closing his eyes as bruises faded. I probably would be. Back to it? Inara groaned, dragging herself up as Alyssa rose smoothly. As you command, My lord. He threw them 2 sabers, holding one himself. Teacher hissed. Enough with the theatrics. Begin. Morgan smiled, blocking an overhead blow as he failed to unravel a cutting wave of force. Blood welled as his legs screamed, pivoting to avoid Inara hitting him over the head. This might take some practice, he thought happily, closing the wound on his leg and kicking Alyssa across the room. But that only means I'm improving. The Karelian sector of Nar Shaddaa was a strange one. Its name came from the mostly Karelian descendant population, yet it was now home to many species living side by side. That is not to say it was a peaceful place. Gangs controlled most of the streets, with port control largely content to live in their fortified barracks and outposts. Everything from gang wars to petty theft was ignored, but to the surprise of no one they came out in force should certain casinos or warehouses be so much as scratched. The rich and powerful, those few that for one reason or another chose to live here, had their own security. Morgan considered that fair, seeing as he was currently moving through the sector with a 20-men escort. Quinn's men were in good form, the captain himself walking beside him at the front while his second held up the rear. Most were new, recruited after the death of the Balmoran resistance, and this would be their very first mission working under him. Said captain had spent their travel time drilling them in their still mostly empty cargo hold, although Morgan had little idea what Quinn had been teaching them. They looked impressive, however, and sometimes that was half the job. The gangs agreed, resistance melting out of the way as they walked deeper into the sector. He did have to stop some eager soldiers from hurrying along an elderly homeless man, but other than that the walk was uneventful. Did I mention I hate slavery? I feel that, somehow, that will become important soon. Vetta's sarcasm lacked her usual levity, her hand never straying far from her blaster. He was about to reply when Alyssa did it for him, turning to the Twi'lek with her customary seriousness. You belong to Lord Morgan. Should any other try to enslave you, they will be slain. Sighing, Vetta patted her on the shoulder. I can't tell if you're joking or not. We'll have to deal with Haladril, unfortunately, but there is no scenario where you will not leave Nar Shaddaa a free woman. Vetta bumped her shoulder into his, smiling briefly. Thanks. I just don't like dealing with slavers, is all. Although with 20 soldiers itching to prove their place and no less than 3 Sith, I don't doubt she'll be on her best behavior. Morgan returned her smile, idly turning to look at a badly hidden observer scurry back into darkness when their eyes met. Don't discount yourself. I'm sure at least some thugs would be too busy drooling over you to aim properly. Inara snorted, Vetta scowling at her playfully before sticking her tongue out at him. You'd be surprised how useful that can be. But then I suppose you wouldn't know anything about that. Morgan put a hand to his chest, eyes widening. The sheer cruelty and spite. My fragile masculinity, I feel it shattering. Breaking into 100 little pieces, never to be the same. She was about to reply when Specialist Harold interrupted her, his voice coming over calms. Possible contact, 300 and closing. Quinn grunted, pointing. Oras, Carper. Intercept. The two surged forward, Lieutenant Helen barking orders as the rest of the men halted. Morgan stalled, watching as they brought back a nervous teen. He eyed the slave collar, waving the 2 soldiers away. They saluted, the young man clearing his throat while bowing deeply. Lord Morgan. Haladril Setsin cordially invites you to participate in drinks and entertainment in the Violet Moon Cantina. Should that be amenable, I am to escort you to the establishment at your leisure. We have business, as it happens. He replied dryly. Lead on. The slave nodded, relief clear on his face, and turned sharply. Morgan motioned to follow him, walking deeper into the sector until they hit what could only be described as the upper-class streets. The filth and grime was gone, even now groups of janitor droids tirelessly cleaning every inch of the floor and walls. Guards of varying allegiances walked in small groups, keeping an eye on them but not intervening. Vetta grumbled as they walked into the cantina itself, 2 holographic dancers framing the entrance. A pleasure house, of course it is. Morgan told Quinn to station his men outside, turning to her. Bad? She shrugged noncommittally. Never been inside. Supposedly one of the nicer ones, so the rape is happening in nicely furnished rooms, but it's a slave brothel all the same. He sighed. Don't shoot anyone. For now she's important to the mission, and thus to Barras. When that's done I can take offense to something she said and there'll be one less of them on Narshada. 2 young women curtsied at the door, smiling brightly with no collar adorning their necks. He let his perception wash through them, finding little but resigned bitterness in their hearts. We are here to see Haladril Setsin. The left woman motioned for them to follow, taking them to a private room. Inara elbowed Alyssa, pointing at a dancer doing very impressive things with her legs. Neither of you are to frequent a slave brothel. Alyssa seemed almost offended. I can feel their emotions just as you can, my lord. I'd rather not spend the night with someone hating every second of it, no matter how prettily they smile. He nodded shortly, finding his patience thinning as he caught sight of an older man inspecting several women. They looked afraid, glancing at each other as the man pointed to 2 of them. Their guide pointed to a door when he asked, only refraining from kicking it in at the last second. He found a woman sitting with 3 men, 2 of them clearly guards, while the last had stood the moment the door opened. Everyone that isn't Haladril Setsin, get out. The man that wasn't a guard turned, his 2 guards joining him. So she wasn't lying about having Sith up her sleeve. Inara and Alyssa stepped forward, hands going to their lightsabers. You've been given orders to leave. Follow them. Ha. We've been trained to handle Sith. Kinda glad we get to show off. When his hand went to his blaster his head disappeared in a mist of red, Vetter calmly aiming to the next guard. He was dead before he could draw his weapon, his comrade managing to curse before Inara cut his torso in 2. Morgan had walked to the now vacant seat, nodding to who must be Haladril. Who did I just kill? Haladril herself was still sipping her drink, nodding her head in greeting. Exchange captain. Low ranking, so no one's going to miss him. Not after your dramatic entrance, at any rate. Haladril, pleasure to meet you. What do you have for me? In case you're unaware, I'm here to kill Lord Rathari. He wasn't. Ah. Yes, of course. Won't be easy, he usually just appears, devastates then disappears. You will have to draw him out by disrupting his power play, make him expose himself. I proposed doing so during his meeting with the Hutt cartels, where he is strong-arming them to signing over some important territories in their own headquarters. Estimated forces? Haladril shrugged. He has an apprentice, Gyric, but otherwise a fairly normal lord's retinue. On the smaller side, if I had to say. The cartels are imperial allies. Should violence break out, it would be best if there were no survivors. I'll transfer you the location. Morgan stood, finding little need to stay now that he got what he came for. I'll try not to pick a fight with the Hutts. Vetter broke off outside, nodding to the taxi service. Not to abandon you or anything, but I do have some other stuff that needs doing. You all right with just those 2? She shot Quinn an apologetic look. Not that I'm discounting the captain and his men, of course. I'll be fine. He waved her off, turning to the interceptor that served as their makeshift transport. Go be mysterious and vague. Meet you on the ship tonight? She kissed him, walking off. Wouldn't miss it. He watched her disappear into an alleyway, turning to Inara. Before I forget, go clear that warehouse for VC. Inara raised her eyebrow. Just me? I have full faith in you. Go. She left with a lingering look at Alyssa, the pureblood's scowl replaced with a small smile. When Inara disappeared, the scowl returned. Morgan chuckled. She'll be fine. Come, we have business of our own. The interceptor took them to the Durs sector with little trouble, its streets filled with the species the sector was named after. Poor would not begin to describe it, crawling with refugees and the desperate. This many refugees will be crawling with gangs. Alyssa said, a touch too nonchalant. Not that I'm against killing the poor, necessarily, but it would delay us. Quinn nodded, surprising Morgan somewhat. Gangs will be prevalent, and my research has shown that this sector contains many specifically fleeing Imperial space. We will not find a warm welcome here. The soldiers around them exchanged looks, tightening their loose circle. Morgan tapped his lightsaber. Scare tactics only. That said, I value your lives over those I do not know. Use your best judgment. Quinn signaled for the pilot to take off, to retreat to a safe distance until needed again, and started to move forwards. It didn't take long before they encountered resistance, finding a man standing on a makeshift platform some ways away. A growing crowd surrounded him, agitation in the air. This is our home. The Empire took everything from me, from us, and now they come to take more? To take what little we have left. The shouting increased in fever, more and more people drawing close. Morgan spied a rather alarming number of weapons among them, but before he could do anything the man had seen them. There they come. The defilers and thieves, come to take our homes, our children, to turn them into monsters. To bring D. The man staggered back, Alyssa's boot kicking him to the ground. The crowd drew back as one, quiet falling like a wave. Her lightsaber ignited. Disperse, now. Her voice echoed off the walls, loud enough the closest people staggered back. The smarter of the crowd vanished down alleyways, fear replacing anger in many faces. When the mob saw the soldiers marching their way, they scattered entirely, Morgan heaving a private sigh of relief. Well done. Mob mentality is a dangerous thing, even to Sith. Alyssa bowed. I live to serve. Or to scatter the homeless, either way. That would have turned ugly fast. Quinn agreed. You have my thanks. Killing civilians has negative implications on morale. Morgan rolled his eyes. And we wouldn't want that. Let's get to the headquarters before another mob forms. Some gangs with more brawn than brains took longer to get out of their way than others, but they made it without fighting. That would have likely drawn the Hutt's enforcers down on them like flies, and he preferred to keep an amicable relationship with them. At least for now. Coming to the Hutt headquarters was a sight to behold, the population thinning until they were the only ones round. Large durasteel gates blocked the street, 24 well-armed enforcers standing outside. His lightest scan told him more remained behind the gate, and a small, hate-filled bundle of force told him exactly where the Sith was. The Lord either isn't here or I can't feel him. I can feel another Sith, though, likely his apprentice. One of the enforcers stepped forward, bowing lightly. The esteemed Kotaka and Iban are in conference, honored guests. You have been permitted entrance, but your retinue is requested to remain outside. Morgan nodded to Quinn, Lieutenant Helen already directing the men some distance away. The captain went with them, leaving him with just one. He walked past the gate, Alyssa close behind. The enforcer cleared his throat, Morgan waving his hand dismissively in reply. She isn't part of my retinue. He walked past, the enforcer letting them. Morgan smiled at the utter lack of anger or indignation, the man clearly not caring one way or the other. They found the Hutts in a grand room, richly decorated and with 2 large thrones dominating much of the space. Droids lined the walls, Morgan blinking at them. Most looked normal enough, but he spotted 6 of the Sith killers. They didn't look the same, much more modestly sized than those he fought on Balmorra, but after his lightsaber failed to do much of anything he'd recognize Beskar anywhere. Unlike the hulking things, these blended in. The Sith already here clearly didn't know what they were, and he discarded the idea of starting a fight with the Hutts. A male Zabrak was pacing before the Hutts, anger etched into his frame. You would be wise to bend to the great Lord Rathari's will. Sign over the specified territories before he loses his patience. The left Hutt, either Wiltaka or Iban, he had no idea, scooped up a large frog and swallowed it whole. Their emotions were muted, somehow, but he didn't feel any fear in them. The Hutt on the right laughed, waving his arm in Morgan's direction. Another Sith guest. Welcome, welcome. This whelp was just threatening the Hutt cartels while standing on Nar Shaddaa, It is quite amusing. The droid next to the huts translated, managing to express humor better than any droids he'd come across. Morgan bowed his head lightly. Apologies for the interruption. I am here to provide an alternative to Lord Rathari's demands. The Sith, who Morgan assumed was apprentice Gyrick, rounded on him. Barras's lackey shows his face at last. And he brought a friend, showing his weakness for everyone to see. That's right, my master and I anticipated your arrival. A rude, arrogant Sith. How boring. Morgan shook his head. I've been here for not even most of the day, Gyrick. Nor did I know you existed until a few hours ago. Let's not pretend we have some rivalry going on, that would just be sad. The left hut spoke, the droids translating in near real time. Tell us your purpose, Dark One. Rathari's death is my purpose. If that happens to align with your own interest, I would be more than willing to aid the Empire's allies in their time of need. We have seen Rathari's strength, yet know nothing of yours. The right hut shrugged. Kill this whelp, and we will consider delaying our deal with Rathari until your mission is complete, or your death simplifies the matter. Gyrick's lightsaber came screaming for his head before he could agree, Morgan sidestepping with a sigh. Like I said, no manners. The Sith narrowed his eyes, lightning leaping from his fingers. Morgan held up his lightsaber to absorb it, unraveling a pull at the same time. Power but no skill. Such a waste. He stepped forwards, forcing the Zabrak to defend left while his leg kicked right. It connected at the hip, Gyrick catapulting through the room and impacting the wall. The 4 droids stationed there stepped out of the way, a scream resounding through the room. Morgan unraveled it again, managing to bleed half its power before it reached him. His shields did the rest, clawing past the Sith's shield in return to freeze his foot in place. Gyrick stumbled, turning his fall into a roll but losing sight of Morgan in the process. His lightsaber blocked the strike that would have taken his leg, Morgan's fist impacting his throat. The Zabrak choked as he tried to stand, the flesh turning blue before he managed it. Morgan shook his head. You might have twice the raw power I do, yet look what that gets you. Sloppy form and slow reflexes, not to mention mediocre force techniques. He kicked again, feeling ribs break before Gyrick impacted the wall. This time he shot after him, the man managing to turn a sure kill into a crippling by leaning to the side. His arm fell to the ground with a thud, the man drawing deeply on the force and opening his mouth. Morgan's lightsaber sliced his skull in half before he could complete it, the dark abandoning the Zabrak in torrents. And that's why I value speed over power. The huts clapped lightly, Morgan ignoring them for the moment and turning to Alyssa. Burn his corpse. He turned to the thrones as she pulled out an incendiary device, one each Enosis member carried. Soft voice was of the opinion no Force user's body should remain behind, something Morgan agreed with wholeheartedly. Great sport. Great action. You were clearly the stronger. The other hut chuckled, a deep sound that reverberated through the room. Defeating the whelp is one thing, Sith. Lord Rathari will be another matter entirely, but we will stall any agreements with the man as promised. Morgan smiled as Gyrick burned, turning to leave. Then our business is concluded. It had been a long time since she'd walked the streets of Nar Shaddaa as she was doing now. Marching through with a small army didn't really count, nor did it grant the true experience of the Ecumenopolis. The last time she'd walked its paths she'd been an artifact hunter and thief, not exactly the highest on the totem pole. A crew helped, as did experience, but neither could account for what she had now. Armor that cost a small fortune, a sniper that could punch through durasteel with ease, and that's not even mentioning the skills she picked up on Drummond Cass. She'd hate the Empire for the rest of her life for what they did to her, but she had to admit they knew how to train their soldiers. Silly me, I almost forgot the strength to bend steel. She snorted, outright ignoring the teenager waving a blaster her way, and ducked into an alleyway. Her map said that her meeting point was at the end, and then she could finally unload her merchandise. And get Quinn off my ass. It's almost as if he doesn't like that I'm smuggling with impunity. The door at the end of the alley flew open, 2 cyborgs escorting Dorka outside. The Mandalorian grunted, moving past her with barely a look and muttering angrily. She raised an eyebrow, stepping to the door when the thugs were about to close it again. "I'm here for Bert. Got that shipment he's been waiting for." They motioned her inside without a word, revealing a warehouse behind it. Most of its space was filled with containers, closed and marked with gang sigils. She briefly inspected them, finding she recognized less than a tenth. Not a surprise. The smaller gangs fracture, reform and fracture again, like it's going out of style. It's been what, 3 years? Bert walked up to her, a mountain of a man more droid than cyborg. He grinned, holding out his hand. "Bert. Army tells me you have my shipment, and something about a change of employer." She shook it, squeezing back as the metal fingers tightened. His grin widened as he let go, inspecting the small imprints on his prosthetic. "Always liked a girl with some bite to her. Afraid to inform you I don't work for Army, though, nor for you. I'm independent, you might say, and I'd like to keep it that way." "Fine by me." She shrugged. "I'm here to sell, and Army tells me you have something I might be interested in." "The armor, yes. Come." Bert walked past rows of containers as she followed, explaining as he went. "I serve as a neutral secure storage facilitator. Don't need to know what's in it, as long as it's not alive or might explode in my warehouse. Good money, if you have the contacts." "I bet." Veta halted as they came to an unmarked section, Bert opening one of the things and walking inside. "Must say, you're pretty confident walking into a dark place with someone you don't know." "I'm a confident guy. Does help that I'm stronger than anyone I come across." She walked inside, a single light illuminating the space. He sent her a considerate look. "Usually." He pulled open a crate, a suit of armor lying inside. She briefly inspected it, sending over a list of modifications. "Army sent me the specs already. You got the facilities to modify it?" "I do. But only because you're a friend of Army. I normally take payment upfront." She flicked over her last 10,000 as if it was nothing, bending down to check the helmet. "That should cover it." Bert nodded easily, tucking the chits away. "Where can my boys pick up the goods? If they're good I'll be paying you that 20 times over, and I don't suppose you'd thank me for it if I gave you a bag." "Not here. You can inspect on site, and I'll take the money there." The cyborg grunted. "No time like the present." She agreed, and after a walk found herself standing in front of her very own, very recently acquired, warehouse. Commander Clara had been kind enough to loan her some bodies to move the goods here, although they had vacated hours ago. "And you call me confident? I could take this shipment and kill you, you know. Army's a practical sort, no trouble at all to resume our old partnership." Veta stretched, idly looking over his 6 men. "I figured I'll just kill you if you try something and sell it myself. It'll take longer, that's all." Bert chuckled, waving at his men to start inspecting. "There's rather more here than expected. More than I can move if I don't want to start a war." "That's fine. Your original shipment is in there somewhere, but the death of the Balmoran Rebellion opened some lucrative opportunities." The men tore open crates and inspected the goods, Bert stalking around them. She waited, not really all that tense. Even if her people's skills had failed spectacularly and they'd attack, she hadn't been lying when she'd said she'll kill them. Their armor didn't even have shields, nor did their strength eclipse her own. "All here, boss." One of the cyborgs called. Bert nodded to the woman, turning back to her. "Then it seems our business is finished. I'll have someone deliver your armor when it's done, shouldn't take but a few hours. Your money." She snorted when he handed over an actual bag, opening a compartment in his torso that must have taken up half his stomach. He nodded at her, then whistled sharply as he and his crew left. Veta looked down at the money, jiggling the bag. Shame most of it is going back to Army, could do some fun things with that much cash. Her display told her it was still hours till evening, unfortunately, and she had weapons to sell. Most of her old contacts had dried up years ago, never mind that she had little interest in tangling with her old life, so it was time to make some new ones. If only she knew someone that was looking for weapons and had the connections to get her more buyers, while undermining that bitch VC at the same time. Hiring a slicer to find Dorcas contacts was easy enough, if not cheap, and an hour of idling later found a meeting invitation popping into her display. It was close enough, still in the Corellian district, but she ran into a problem. More accurately, the problem ran into her. Some hulking man with glowing eyes rounding on her after bumping into her, anger stitched over his features. Her strength stopped her from sprawling to the ground, but even if she had, this one had the look of someone spoiling for a fight. So she shot him. Her draw had always been fast, running with pirates will do that, and her hesitation to kill had been low long before consorting with Sith. What she hadn't counted on was her blaster bolt doing very little at all, having to sidestep to avoid a meaty hand grabbing at her. Subcutaneous armor plating. That's very expensive, actually. Who is this? Tailheads. The man spat. As if there aren't enough tweez on Nar Shaddaa, now they're thieving and knocking people over. Brutus will kill you for this, mark my words. She stepped back again when he lunged, her legs snapping to hit his knee. She saw brief surprise flicker through his face when the leg buckled, her sniper in hand before he could regain balance. Her rifle hadn't been made for close combat, but then bolt guns didn't exactly lose power at close range, quite the opposite, really. The round punctured through the man's torso with a low whine, his body pressed to the floor. She put the barrel to his head, lightly squeezing the trigger before he could do much of anything in response. The fight, if it could even be called that, had lasted some 4 seconds if you counted the initial shoulder bump. The street was clear, only a single blind drug addict left behind, looking around with a confused expression on his face. With a clear victor emerging and the violence over the people returned, reappearing from alleyways or hiding holes and going back to their business. She shrugged, checking his pockets to find a few hundred credits, and left herself. Here's hoping he wasn't anyone important. She dropped the pouch, pulling out an identity card. Oh, look at that. He's actually named Brutus. Who even talks like that? She'd known she was more dangerous than ever. Goddess, she'd survived Korriban and fought in an actual war. This felt different, though. The person she'd just killed, in self-defense or not, had terrified her when she was young, walking Nar Shaddaa as apex predators. Now people scurried out of her way, fearful looks and submissive gestures forcefully reminding her she'd joined their ranks without properly realizing it. Veta put it out of her mind when she arrived at the club, 2 bouncers nodding politely as she entered. In stark contrast to the one she'd been to this morning, the hostess had an easy smile and fancy clothing, her suit clearly tailored to her frame and what she guessed was a blaster hidden on her hip. Her contact was known here, fortunately, so the hostess beckoned her to follow when she mentioned his name. Dorka was drinking when she found him, alone and watching a Zabrak dancer move on stage. She sat down herself, ordering a drink and admiring the woman for a few seconds. Not the place I usually do business. The Mandalorian snorted. Where would that be? From what my slicer tells me, you've been a pirate and thief, skilled but inexperienced. Then your records stop abruptly some 2 years back, vanishing without a trace. When everyone you knew assumed you were dead, you show up linked to a Sith, killing kingpins like so much trash and looking to sell mountains of equipment. That was only 20 minutes ago. She complained good-naturedly, accepting her drink from another sharply dressed server. Suppose that's what I get for not having someone scrub the net after me. Dorka waved his hand, his eyes flickering back to the stage briefly. To be blunt, I shouldn't be here talking to you. You're dangerous, unpredictable, and while VC and your boss might be allies, if you're blind and highly optimistic, we both know it's war sooner rather than later. Not here on orders from my boss. She countered lazily. He cares little what I do in my free time, and after I saw Bert kick you out, I figured we might as well talk. No need to get either of our bosses involved, now or later. The Mandalorian sighed, putting his back to the room to face her properly. You'd be selling weapons to someone who, by contract, will be forced to fight you. Quite literally supplying the enemy. Oh my sweet Mandalorian. Veta leaned back, tapping her glass. VC truly has no idea who she's gotten involved with, has she? When my boss tires of her games, or more accurately decides her death will be more convenient after all, no amount of weapons or armor is going to save her. Not unless she has some Jedi tucked away, which I doubt. She drained her glass, the server appearing with another almost the second she did. Or maybe she figures those little Sith killer droids will save her. Dorka didn't stiffen or otherwise betray his surprise, but Veta had been doing this long enough to know it when she saw it. Thought so. Those don't work as well as advertised, I'm afraid. Now how would you even know those exist? And, perhaps more importantly, why would you tell me? His casual relaxation didn't change so much, but he straightened. Who is he? She giggled, enjoying the disturbed look he didn't quite manage to suppress. That would be telling. I like you, though, so here I am. Now, you wanna buy some weapons for the very fair and not at all hopeless war you insist is inevitable? Promise they'll be in working order, straight from the Balmorra factories. Dorka haggled well, his eyes dragging back to the stage after they shook hands. You can come by tomorrow morning to pick them up, I'll send you the address. The man nodded, accepting another drink. I'd say it'd be nice working with you, Veta, but I don't think you'll be good for my health. Liar. She snorted. Mandalorians don't value their well-being. She left him behind, the hostess bowing politely at the door. We have many other accommodations for someone of your means, should you wish to avail yourself now or later. It was a pleasure serving you, ma'am. She stalled, throwing a look back to the dancer and feeling heat rise in her stomach. Tempting, but I think not tonight. The hostess bowed again, holding the door open. She saw the Zabrak dancer bend, twirling on the pole. I might need to seduce Morgan again, though. For all that he's coming along nicely, he has the bad habit of not initiating. Morgan found himself walking the spaceport of Nar Shaddaa, stretching his legs. Veta had gone off to do crime stuff, her words, so he was taking his walk alone. Not that, after last night, he was feeling particularly lonely. Morgan blinked, ducking into a small cantina built into the walls when he felt a familiar signature standing behind the counter. John waved, cleaning some cups and nodding to one of the few seats. You got a job. Or a second one, stalking me seemingly your main purpose in life. John shrugged, his hands keeping busy as he looked around the empty space and ignoring his sarcasm. Temporarily. How was your flight? Better than yours, I imagine. Morgan sat, accepting a sweet-tasting drink. I don't suppose I have to catch you up on anything? You mean about working for VC, killing a Lord's apprentice and securing neutrality from the Hutts? Consider me caught up. Morgan nodded. Good. I could use some advice, actually. Kegel exercises. John supplied. Works wonders. Not even remotely what I was going to ask, and I'm doing fine in that area, thank you very much. It's about VC. In your professional opinion, should I kill her or not? John kept silent, serving some sliced fruit that tasted bitter. He only answered after some time, motioning to the exit. This is Nar Shaddaa. To say the Hutts are in control here would be an understatement, and VC very much belongs to the cartels. Killing her would, by precedent and law, start a war. He put the glasses away, leaning on the counter. That said, she's losing her grip. The Hutts are firm believers that the strong rule, and that belief is ingrained so deeply in their culture it applies even to other Hutts. Do you know how they first rose to claim what is now known as Hutt space? They came to power fairly soon after the Infinite Empire collapsed, expanding their territory on the back of slave armies. They ruled much of the galaxy as the dominant government of the time, but I've no idea how long they existed until they formed their empire. John nodded, looking faintly surprised. Indeed. It should be noted that Hutt space existed even before the Rakota collapse, and they came to galactic power only after. Nevertheless, their species is highly intelligent, although notable outliers do exist, and can live for over a millennium. Killing a Hutt ensures grudges that can last just as long, assuming they don't use their extreme wealth to kill you first. I'm not hearing a recommendation. Then you aren't listening. John tapped the counter. Hutts that lose their power are no Hutts at all, and will not be avenged. Morgan tilted his head. Rob her, then kill her? I assumed that was already the plan, especially with how Vetta's been going after her people. The man shrugged. But yes. Take everything, and the cartels won't lift a finger to help when you shove a lightsaber through her neck.